Mostly, I don't think games are made for vocabulary drilling. I think they work. I think they're fine, just like any other study tool. But I'm really, really interested in the complexities. And if you are studying the lexicon through a game, well, how does that relate to this semantic idea, and how do these work together? So much more complex ideas about how language works. So where are we now? It's pretty clear in the data that we have that we need to build with a purpose. We need to be very careful about the choices we make in building in 3D spaces, in building in mobile games, iterative design, ecological design. What we see a lot of times, and this is the case with CERCLL, is that you have a lot of grant money, it works really well, and then when that grant money runs out, poof, right? It's gone. And so the idea is actually you can build in a way that's sustainable and usable for other instructors as well. And really making choices about maybe graphics don't have to be as perfect as actually the game behavior itself. And we know that's true from lots of examples. Also engaging both learners and teachers as designers with the idea that for learners, design becomes pedagogy. They actually learn something by designing, not just by playing what we've designed for them, because we know in many instances they actually don't even play it the way we designed anyway. And teachers as designers in terms of, one, building things for their students, because that's what we like to do as teachers, but also thinking about how this pedagogy might happen from a game-informed perspective. How could I do assessment a little bit differently, maybe, based on what I do in games? And also teacher preparation and training. Anyone thinking of doing anything with games has to play. If you haven't played games, you have to play. You can't understand it without it. And so how do we get teachers even time to be able to do that, right? We all have lots of work and lots of things to do, and going home and playing 10 hours of World of Warcraft probably isn't what we're thinking of doing. Most of the time my comment is, man, I am too tired to play games, which to me is much a sign that it's very cognitively complex and difficult to do what you're doing, right? That's what we know, basically. We know they can be effective. We know they can be very ineffective. Recently there have been a few studies that have come out that have shown students playing games actually really aren't doing that well. And I think it has a lot to do with the design choices we're making or the types of things that we're measuring. It doesn't have to do with the games themselves. And so we really need to be cautious about the things we do. Obviously, I'm enthusiastic about what's going on with games, but also very cautious about the choices we make when and where they might work and not work. Where do I see us going in the, oh no, I pushed the wrong button. Where do I see us going in the future? Most importantly, empirical data. We have to start getting more and more and more data to be able to support that. And I would also say, well, I have this as a point down below, but we have to share that data. I know it's very much against our nature as academics to, here's my data set, see what you can do with it. Whoa, wait a minute, what are we doing, right? But the more we can share, the less we have to worry about all of these difficulties in creating these gameplay data sets, right? I mean, we're talking, in the case of CERCLL, a whole year of just building to be able to have a 3D immersive space, to be able to have this data. And if we don't share that data, I mean, I don't have time to analyze every possible aspect of what's going on there, nor am I interested in doing so. And therefore, if we learn how we can share those resources and data sets as researchers, I think we have a lot of potential for moving forward much more quickly than we might have even in the past. Also, I think in the future we need to make an intentioned investigation of vernacular or commercial games as compared to built games. When should we build? When should we not build? When is it important to really make good game design decisions? How many game design classes should we all take before we build? How much reading should we do? And not just sort of run out there and create a unit that just replicates what happens in the classroom. Really think about what's happening in games. Also, engaging our learners as designers. We've started doing that a little bit, but not very well. I think there's a lot that we can do in that area and moving forward. And then, again, sharing these resources, which I just talked about. And ultimately, what I'm most interested in, and I think what most of the people that I'm working with in our group, is that we're really looking for game-informed pedagogy. And what does that mean? Whether you use games or not. You wouldn't have to use one single digital game to understand game-informed pedagogy. It's thinking about what we can learn from what captures learners in games. The reason they fail English and write 900 pages about their favorite thing, right, online. What can we take from that and actually learn as educators to improve what we want to happen in our classroom? And ultimately, I think that's what all of us are working towards, as opposed to the idea of like, this is a really cool new tool that I want to use. It's really, really the idea of saying, I'm going to do assessment differently. And I know it's sort of against what's happening, but I'm at least going to take the time to empirically investigate what works and what doesn't work. And be willing to sort of learn from these environments to do something interesting with language and with pedagogy. And I'm hoping that's sort of the direction we're going. It's definitely the work that John and myself and Steve and David Neville, that we're all sort of going in that direction. And so we'd love to have any of you on board, and we're looking forward to it. And so to answer my own question, I definitely don't think games change the world. But I do think the people who play them can. And so that's what I'm really, really hoping. Is that there's a chance that our learners actually move beyond one semester of Spanish anyway. Maybe to 2, if that's all we can get, at least it's better than 1. So thank you again so much for having me. I'm glad to be here. So I'll open it up. And we do have time for questions purposefully. So.